Time now for our Focus report. In his annual State of the Union address at the weekend, Mexico's President Enrique Pena Nieto said security is his government's top priority. The first 6 months of this year were the most violent in 2 decades, with some 12,000 reported murders. And they're not always investigated, so some civilians take matters into their own hands. Our report begins in Veracruz, the capital of one of the states with the highest number of missing people and murders.
Veracruz, a bustling port and a hot tourist destination until just a few years ago. But things have changed.
We say that it's positive if, after pulling out the probe from the ground, we smell something different, something very particular, a very peculiar smell. It's really tough when it tests positive and there's that certain smell from the ground. It means that there are human remains here. But that's what we're here for, to find the bodies that are buried here.
Every day for a year, Celia's come here combing through the dirt, digging and sniffing. Along with her friends from the Solecito collective, she's dug up 270 bodies. They use whatever they can for their excavations. Police often watch on passively.
We're really doing their job for them. We haven't left one piece of land untouched. All of this, all this area you can see here, is very big, 14 hectares I think, and basically we've combed through all of it already. This is our second time going round. It's something you might not believe or be able to understand, but as mothers I think we sense when there's someone down there.
Celia fears her son will be found somewhere in this clandestine mass grave. Criminals had been burying victims here for years. Alfredo disappeared 6 years ago. They're hit by a downpour. The women take a break to share what's on their mind.
Who is guilty? Who do you turn to? Who can you complain to? If no matter what you do, nobody does anything. The police haven't done anything. Since 2010, they have yet to open a case and investigate.
Who are you searching for?
My husband, he disappeared in 2010. And last year they killed my son. I did find him though, dismembered, but I found him.
Officials, authorities, the police, systematically the first thing they tell you is he must have been involved in some shady business. Who knows what he got himself into? Or things like, be really careful, you should drop this, you never know what could happen with these criminal groups.
No one feels they can turn to the authorities. We're 300 kilometers from Veracruz. In Puebla, citizens are banding together to fight crime.
So what are you saying? Have you found them or not?
Gustavo and his neighbors are looking for some burglars stealing in the area.
They must still be in the area.
What do you do if you catch them?
We can proceed to what's legally called in Mexico a citizen's arrest. It's the police that should be doing this work.
Crime has skyrocketed in this wealthy and touristy city. Citizen watch groups have cropped up in various neighborhoods to push back.
I asked again at the gas station and he told me they had passed by 10 minutes ago.
Okay, go look around along the 19th Street and then resume your patrol. Let's go to where they were last seen. You see, we're overwhelmed by crime. There aren't enough policemen.
This time, the bad guys got away. But over time, the citizen sheriff has built up an impressive repertoire of crime fighting in Puebla.
Here we have the day, the location, and the nature of the crime. This here is a case of stolen car mirrors, and we have this video. It's clear evidence. We got it. We obviously sent it to the police so they can maybe process it.
Even with these organized groups, impunity remains extremely high here. Only 16% of investigations lead to arrest warrants or criminal charges. For Celia, a long day digging is over.
This is my restaurant. I had to close it to focus on finding my son.
Once again, she goes home with no new information about her son. Alfredo vanished without a trace in 2011 while driving on a dangerous road known to be controlled by a drug cartel. He left behind his wife, 3 children, his hardware store, and a promising future.
When a mother comes to us and tells her that her son disappeared just 2 or 3 months ago, you can imagine her heart's in pieces. We're fighting back tears as we listen to her, and I feel like saying, I've been searching for my son for the past 6 years and I found nothing. But I refuse to believe that nobody knows anything.
Like many of her friends in the collective, Celia's given up on getting justice.
I'm sure there's a person, somebody, somewhere who knows where my son is. This person, this could happen to them one day. Why don't they give me a clue? Why can't they just tell me your son's buried here? I swear I wouldn't say anything. I wouldn't tell anyone this person was an accomplice in this crime. All those sleepless nights. But I'm going to keep on searching. I'm going to keep on searching.
There are 30,000 families trying to find their missing loved ones around Mexico, like Celia. It's a silent nightmare, and one the authorities can't seem to stop.
For more on this, I'm now joined from Mexico City by Esteban Liares. He's the editor of a magazine called Nexos. Hello, thank you very much indeed for your time. Now, are most homicides in Mexico related to organized crime?
Hi, good afternoon. Well, that depends on who you ask. The president this Saturday held his 5th out of 6 State of the Union addresses. And one of his main topics was that homicides here in Mexico the majority of them now do not have to do with drug trafficking at all. But he didn't really give any figures or didn't give any sources for his statement. So it really depends on who you ask. If you ask people who work in these collectives like Solecito, the one that was mentioned in the report, then yes, most crimes are related to drug trafficking or people who are involved in it, confused or in it or something like that. But if you ask the president, he's going to tell you that it's just normal violence, that it's robberies, that it's part of everyday life.
Now, he says that Mexico's President Pena Nieto, that more needs to be done on a local level. Does he have a point?
He does and he doesn't, because the main idea behind Mexico is facing a war on drugs. The war turned 10 years last year. That's 10 years fighting cartels. And the main idea when this started in 2006 was that the army would get involved, so the police, federal, local, and state police would become professionalized. That is, that they would have enough resources and training to actually fight these crimes instead of letting the army do it. But 10 years since that began, the police hasn't really professionalized. They have really low wages. Most of them earn around 100 euros a month, and they face very important challenges that they don't know how to solve. So he has a point in the sense that nothing has really been done, but the government, the federal government, really hasn't done its work either in helping these policemen become professionalized and changing the approach against the war on drugs, because as of today, it's the army that's been fighting the war on drugs for 10 years now.
And what about corruption and fear? I mean, is it because of that not all murders are investigated?
Well, corruption is definitely a big issue. It permeates the entire state. The president himself was mentioned as part of a corruption inquiry a few years ago when he was accused of receiving one of his homes as payment from one of a government contractor. So corruption goes all the way to the top. In terms of actually investigating murders, there is a lot of corruption. I mean, police and investigators are in cahoots with the drug traffickers. So family members don't really investigate or don't really go to the police to actually investigate because they know nothing will happen. There's several cases I can tell you, for example, about Miriam Rodriguez, who was killed this Mother's Day. She was a mother. She was looking for her daughter. She found her daughter's remains a few years later after she disappeared, and doing activist work, promoting campaigns for finding loved ones who were disappeared. She was murdered. This was the 10th of May this year. There's been no investigation. There's been no one who's been charged.
I was going to ask you about that. I'm sorry to interrupt. So people who are digging up graves, like we saw in our report, they are actually risking their lives. They're risking becoming the victims of cartels as well.
They are. I mean, this has been going on for several years. The most important case was Maricela Escobedo. This was in 2010. Her daughter was murdered. She led the investigation. She found out who the killer was. She actually brought the killer to the police. The police arrested him. They tried him. They let him go free even though he confessed. She complained. She protested in front of the governor's mansion in Chihuahua. And then she was shot and she was killed. And her murder is still an open investigation 7 years later. There's also the case I was telling you about, Miriam Rodriguez, or there's also a woman in Iguala, Angelica Bruno, who was looking for the 43 students who disappeared. And now she's also dead. She was killed. And none of these three cases have been solved or there are any leads whatsoever in trying to find them. So people actually, they try to find their loved ones and they end up dead.
I'm afraid we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you very much indeed, Esteban Liades, for joining me from Mexico City. Esteban, who works for Nexos.